be innovation in the context of Rio+20 by the three major groups, firstly scientific and technological community, and business and industry, and local authorities. The second cluster will be on ambitious and just transitions to the future we want. This is by the major group Women, Indigenous Peoples, and Workers and Trade Unions. Finally, the third thematic cluster will be on human rights and governance in the context of Rio+20 by the major groups Farmers, Children and Youth, and non-governmental organizations. So that was to give you an idea of how these 2 hours will be used, and of course we will then also have interactive dialogue with the member states and with the Bureau, which is what we're here for, within these clusters and overall. That was to give you an idea. We have also agreed on a joint opening statement by the major groups, so let me begin with that. We know that the logistics are not the focus of today, but do allow me to make a brief statement on logistics because they are indeed the precondition for the substantive discussions. We thank the Brazilian government and all others involved who have made it possible that we major groups will be able to use the shuttle services to be provided in Rio. This will make our participation much easier, and we are very grateful indeed that this has now been made possible. At the same time, we continue to be faced with other logistics challenges. The availability and especially the prices of accommodation pose serious problems for many of us. Any facilitation of this issue would be greatly appreciated. With only 52 days to go, news about the accommodation would be welcome as soon as possible. Above and beyond the pure logistics, we also are concerned about the speaking rights. The General Assembly resolution for the UN Conference for Sustainable Development, Rio+20, gives the major groups active roles in the preparatory process at all levels and regions. The major groups are referred to in 8 out of the 29 paragraphs in that resolution. We have a formal and active role in the Rio+20 process. Paragraph 21 in the UN resolution states this unequivocally, and I quote, Paragraph 21 encourages the active participation of all major groups as identified in Agenda 21 and further elaborated in the Johannesburg Plan of Implementation and decisions taken at the 11th session of the Commission at all stages of the preparatory process in accordance with the rules and procedures of the Commission, as well as its established practices related to the participation and engagement of major groups. As negotiations at CSD 11 in 2003 ended, a set of modalities based on the JPOI had been developed concerning the major groups. Among these modalities are strengthening major group participation in CSD activities, the interactive dialogue during the high-level segment, make the multi-stakeholder dialogues more action and implementation oriented, enhance participation and effective involvement of civil society and other relevant stakeholders in implementation, promote transparency and broad public participation. Delegates, for 10 years, the major groups have, under the rules and procedures of the Commission, been allowed to address the plenary sessions at CSD. We have been allowed to give an opening statement, have been allowed to address the sessions through questions and comments, and have been allowed closing statements as well. We now find ourselves bereft of these opportunities. We are aware of the status of the present negotiations. They are called informals. We are also aware of the privilege of the UN assemblies to interpret procedural rules, and that informals are often run in accordance to their own rules. Co-chairs and bureau members, we would like to draw your attention again to paragraph 21 of the General Assembly resolution calling for Rio+20, stating that major group participation should be at all stages of the preparatory process. We find that under strict or flexible interpretation, all stages also includes the informals. Strengthening the institutional framework means taking major group participation to the next level. Thus, we must be integrated in the process as full-fledged actors and given the respect we deserve. This can be done without infringing on the rights of the governments. Delegates, it is too late now to allow major groups opening statement at this informal meeting. It is, however, not too late to grant each of us closing statements. It would also be in complete accordance with the GA resolution to allow major groups opening statements, comments during the deliberations, and closing statements at the third and final PrepCom in June in Rio. We thank you in advance for considering this request. And we remain open to answer any questions about this during this dialogue today or whenever you see any of us around later on. That was our joint opening statement. I've mentioned the 3 clusters which we have agreed on and which we hope you will find interesting. So with that, let me lead over into the first cluster, innovation in the context of Rio+20, by the scientific and technological community, business and industry, and local authorities. Maybe to preface a bit more these three thematic clusters, when we learned that we had this 2-hour opportunity to talk to you all, and that indeed there was quite an interest to focus on particular issues rather than to have 9 statements from the 9 major groups, our very dear coordinators from the Secretariat said, why don't you guys try and get together and actually discuss issues and see where you agree and how you can, what topics matter to all of you and how you can frame these. And we weren't so sure that would happen because the 9 major groups are indeed very distinct and we focus on different things. I personally was almost surprised to find that we quite quickly managed to agree on these clusters, and we hope that this will allow us to frame this morning's discussions in an active and interesting way for all of us. So this first cluster on innovation is very related to the 3 major groups because most of us, I think, here agree that business as usual is no longer an option. We need science to innovate, we need research and development, and we need application of these new innovations that science and others come up with. So we know that all these 3 major groups, science and technology, business and local authorities or cities, have contributed to the problems that we're faced with, but all these 3 groups are also essential parts of the solutions to these problems. We need innovation and change, and these 3 major groups can contribute to this innovation and to this change. We need the UN member states working together within the UN context to act, and we are acting too, and we hope we can all move forward together. With that, I will give the floor now to the scientific and technological community for their statement.